Hey everybody, it's Divine Readings of the Gypsy with part 2 of my deck collection video today. And today I'm going to be showing you all the decks that I'm having a harder time relating with. The first part, or part 1 of my deck collection video, is all my favorite decks that I would never trade and I would never get rid of. I would never part with it in any sort of ways. And you would notice in this segment of my deck collection video, there's going to be no independently published decks in this collection. Dun dun dun. I am very selective when it comes to my independently published decks. I know exactly what I want and when I want it and how I'm going to get it and all those wonderful little details. I'm not one to just frivolously buy independently published decks. I really plan it out and think it out and meditate on it before I just buy indie decks. So all my decks in this video today are indefinitely going to be mass-produced. And let's not hesitate and just start. My first one is my social media deck, and it is the Kabbalahlistics Visions Tarot. I really want to do a walkthrough of this deck one of these days. Because it's just so un-tarot. It does not have really a traditional Rider-Waite structure. It's kind of got its own system thing going on. I think it has some really big alchemical meanings to it. It's kind of a dirty deck, because this is butt cheeks, if you haven't noticed, and things like that. You definitely see some hidden things in the artwork in this deck, and it's kind of like that sinister little kid playing on the playground kind of attitude on the with this deck, like the guy's looking up the skirt and all that stuff. It's kind of, this deck is kind of crazy. The only issue I have with this deck is, one, it's not really readable. Two, when I got it from Sheffer, some of the cards were shredded, and I had to ask them to get me some extra cards. But I love this deck as far as a social media deck and also a meditative deck, and you could say a lot. I haven't tried reading with it yet, honestly. I've had this deck for about 2 years now. Haven't really tried to read with it, and I think it's about time. I think it's about time I start really hardcore working with it. I said that back in August with, the Tarot Perspective, but I'm kind of really meaning it now. I really need to work with it. This deck, I haven't finished edging it, is my Nova Tarot. I think that's what they call this, the Nova Tarot. It's the Barnes & Noble deck or whatever, and it's very simple images. It's a mini deck, but it's really clever. I love it, and it's cutesy. Kind of reminds me of the Everyday Witch Tarot. You really could work really nicely with this deck. It's very simple imagery, but you could get a lot from it. Haven't really finished edging it, so I gotta put it back in order. I started edging it black so I could really start working with it and things like that, and just have not got around to it. The next one I used during the Tarot Perspective, and this is one of my Native American decks, if you watch my Native American deck collection video. Oh no, Kelly from Show Us Those Stories live chat. She's going to have to wait. I'm just going to have to speed this up. This is my Native American Tarot by Scarabeo. It's definitely a good deck. Definitely meaty. Definitely good. It's not following any kind of Rider-Waite structure or structure whatsoever. It kind of does its own thing. I will do a proper review one of these days. This deck is the Ellen Dugan's Witch's Tarot. This is kind of everything that I wish the Everyday Witch Tarot was. I don't know, there's something about this deck that I'm still not connected with. I'm very disconnected with this deck. My husband bought it for me. I feel so bad that I have not used it, really, since I bought it. or got it. I feel bad. I feel really, really bad. This one is one deck that I'm not giving up on connecting with, is the... Oh, what the hell is this deck name? Deviant Moon Tarot. This is the Deviant Moon by Patrick Llewelyn. I knew it was Patrick Llewelyn Tarot. I was like, I didn't know what it was called, Deviant Moon. I love this deck, though. Still want to work with it. Still going to work with it. And this next deck is the Circo Tarot. When we were talking about Circle decks, and it's kind of a low Scarabeo deck too that does its own thing in its own system, but I still really like this deck, and it has a very big Fae energy to it, and I really want to know this deck, but I just haven't gotten around to getting to know it. I really liked Kelly's edging of this deck, but I might not be able to get to edge it for quite some time, because it's like an expensive Windsor Newt, and that really matched it. This is another Rider-Waite deck I have. This one is the... Oh, shit. This one, I forgot which original Rider-Waite. I like this one in a way. The lines are a little bit too bold. The color is just that right color. I love the coloring. It's kind of that antique color to it. I really like the coloring. Just the lines are a little bit too bold, and that's about it. Other than that, I really like this deck. This was my Rider-Waite deck for a while. The next deck is the Handl Tarot. I love this deck, and this has actually been a go-to deck for a while. I just cannot stand the planetary symbols and the runes and the Hebrew letters. I don't know I Ching enough to have a problem with the I Ching symbols, but this major arcana symbols drive me apeshit. It drives me apeshit crazy. Oh my god, it really does. And the next deck is the Paulina Tarot, and I got this for Christmas. Not this past year, but the year before. Haven't really got to use it yet, and I trimmed it. And I actually kind of wish I didn't trim it, because there was still artwork that was still in this part that I kind of trimmed away. But I really like this deck, and I really want to get to know this deck because it's kind of whimsically. It's kind of like that Fae energy again. I really want to use it. It's another Fae deck that I really wish I could use or want to use. Next one is this deck. I really want to use this one because I heard a lot of people wanting to use it and really had good results using it, and it's a Native American deck. Again. And I really love this deck, and I really want to love this deck. I just need to just sit down and actually use it. And that's all. And it's a wonderful deck, I think, if you can use it. And I know it's a lot of people's go-to. This deck is the Handl Tarot. This is my favorite Doreen Virtue deck of all time. I hate everybody else's, all the other Doreen Virtue decks. I just don't agree with some of her angel associations, that's all. But that's okay. I love this deck, but I hate the fact that she used Michael more than once and the majors in this deck. That's my only complaint. Other than that, I love this deck. I love the keywords to it, actually, alright? And I just don't agree with some of the angels associations that she has, but she writes the book on the angel associations for the most part. The minors, it's kind of like the earths and the fairy theme, and the wands is kind of that dragon theme. The air or the swords is kind of the unicorn theme, and the water is kind of like that aqua theme. I don't like that in a way, but I wish you just kept it strictly angel, but oh well. It's still my favorite Doreen Virtue deck, though. This one is a good study deck, too. This one is the Universal Waite. And I actually really love this one. I kind of like to imagine that this is what Paulina Coleman Smith would have wanted. if this was, I wish, I would have, there's a part of me that feels like this is what she really envisioned the tarot to be. Because I love the pastelness, I love the colors, and I love just the right boldness in the right places. I really do. I really like this one. And I love that depiction of the Rider Waite. This one's the Shadowscapes Tarot. I want to love this deck. I haven't decided if I should trim the borders or keep the borders on. And I just have not connected with this deck. This deck and I just have not got along. I don't know what it is. I haven't decided to trim the borders. I haven't decided to work it with it. I really love Samantha Pumanlaw's art. I actually have her art books and stuff like that for her watercolor art. That's how much I actually like her art. I just have not used this damn deck. I love it. But it's also another Fae energy deck. This is my quite literally second tarot deck I ever had. There's a part of me that wishes that I kept the borders on this deck yet again like my Marielle deck. Because I've actually used this deck for many, many years and a long time with just the borders around it because it didn't bother me. Because it had that cursive script on it and it had that not invasive borders. So it was big borders, but it was not invasive to the art whatsoever. I trimmed it down to give it a new light, and I still love it trimmed. I just wish I could use it a little bit more than I have been. This is kind of bring me back to really the good old times, you know. I probably will pick this deck up real soon. The next deck is my husband's deck, and it's the Vision Quest Tarot. I actually think I'm going to get myself a copy of this deck eventually. I really love this deck, and I actually really want to start using this deck, but he is very protective of this deck. This is one of his go-to decks, and he doesn't mind if I use it, but he really prefers if I had my own kind of thing, so that tells me one thing. I really like this deck. I really want to try to use this deck. I'm actually revisiting it and kind of really wanting to use it. So I might get myself a copy. The next deck is the Robinwood Tarot. And I actually love this deck. I hate the cardstock. The cardstock is the worst cardstock ever. I love this deck. I love this deck so much. The reason why I have it trimmed is not because I didn't like the borders, was because, I kid you not, everybody, the art on my particular deck bled onto the borders. Oh my god, it actually bled onto the white borders. The art on my deck bled onto the white borders. You can't really tell. I think you could tell a little bit in the green man a little bit. No, you can't see it on the camera, but it actually bled onto the borders. I was so upset with the cardstock. And when I also rifle shuffled it, I bent some of the cards, and the cardstock had that really bad crease in it. Oh my god. I hate the cardstock. I really want another copy of this deck, just so hopefully that I didn't have as bad misfortune as I had with that particular deck. This is my... Okay, this is my... Okay, this is my Royo Dark Tarot. This is the fantasy porn star tarot deck. I love this deck, though. You could read it very Pippish-like, and it does its own thing. I'm trying to find images that are not too overly sexual, and not too bad either. Oh, yeah, that's a good one. I'm trying not to find too many sexual cards in here so I could show you all. Kind of do a quick flip through. I do have a walkthrough, but it was not really a walkthrough to write home about. I kind of took pictures of each individual card and just put it up. The next deck is the Vampire Tarot by Ian Fleming? The Phantasmagoria deck, or the... Yeah, it's like that Phantasmagoria is the book, and this is the Vampire Tarot. Actually, Al Moon made me buy this deck quite a while back, when I was following Al Moon. I love the book, and I actually love this deck. There's a certain darkness about this deck that I really like. I love dark decks, and I love the cheesy darkness, too. Ooh, yum. Yum, 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 yum. Love cheesy vampires, cheesy darkness. Actually, this is one of my favorite tarot cards of all time. By the way, as a side note. Love this deck. I actually wish I could use it more. And I edged it beautifully blacked. I'm going to hurry up so I can hurry up and get to the live chat. The next deck is the Halloween Tarot. This is actually the Halloween Tarot in a tin. I just have not quite used this yet deck. I got this deck because it made me laugh. I quite literally laugh out loud every time I hold this deck. It's wonderful. I just want to use it more. Love the scarecrows. I love the cheesiness. It's just the best, happy, go lucky deck. This next deck, I am really disappointed about the cardstock as well. This one is the Circo Visions deck. I should do a walkthrough of this deck. This is a wonderful deck. It has the cartomancy number and has the element number right there. And it's the Flea Circus. And these are all quite literally circus cards and circus decks. I think this one is upside down. It's actually a really good tarot deck, and it's actually a pretty good guidebook. I just wish that the cardstock was a lot better, and so I'm not afraid to hurt the cardstock. And it's a shame, too, because I paid a lot of money for this deck. I paid like $30 for this deck, and it's on really shitty cardstock. And I really love this deck, though. I got it at a psychic fair in North Carolina a few years back. I just wish that it was on better cardstock. That's all I wish. Better cardstock. Because I really feel like the archetype, this is an archetype deck, and it's a archetype deck that would have been really cool if it was on better cardstock. I might scan it and put it on playcardstock.com. I haven't decided yet. But this is definitely a good deck. I love this deck. I just wish it was on better cardstock. This next deck, I have been putting on my trade list, off my trade list, on my trade list, off my trade list, and I might put it back on, I don't know, is the Mystic Dremers Tarot. And I just can't stand the CGI-ness of this deck, the CGI cheesiness of this deck. Although there are some of the CGI work that is very redeeming. Like, this is very redeeming. This is very redeeming for the CGI work. I think this is pretty good. This is very good. This is very good. These kind of cards would make me buy the deck. This is very good. This is very good. But there's, like, some of the cards, like, there's some really, really good cards, and then there's some really bad cards that are like, oh my god, you're kidding me. Like that one. No, please. I'm not prejudiced against having multiple bodies and different body types in my tarot decks, but the way they did about it, it was like, oh my goodness, the CGI-ness. And okay, this is my worst card of all time in this deck. The CGI horse and the 2 cups in this deck is really, really bad. I actually love her. I love her as the Queen of Swords. That is a really kick-ass Queen of Swords, actually. Where's that 2 of Cups? Oh, God. This is really bad. He had his head photoshopped onto this abnormal body. Oh, my God. That's bad. It was really, really bad. And it's CGI'd hair. Oh, my God. I hate a lot of things in this deck, but I love so many other cards in this deck, too. I really want to love that deck. This is another tarot deck that actually, way back when, Tarot Oracle made me buy this deck. I wish he came back to YouTube. I love this deck, actually, in a way. Maybe I will reacquaint myself with this deck instead of putting it on my trade list. I was debating putting this on my trade list because I just don't have the... It's like that energy, that little energy. I love the colors in it, though. Maybe I really will reacquaint myself with this deck. I love it, in a way. It has its voice, maybe. I didn't feel like it had a voice. That's why I didn't get it. I wanted to put this on my trade list. So I didn't get the voice. And I felt like it was too much like the Robinwood Tarot. But I'm actually looking at it now. I'm reconsidering how I felt about this deck. Rockstar Emperor card. Yeah, I might really change my mind about that one. I don't know. Alright. Next one is the Goddess Tarot. And, oh my god, this deck's borders was really, 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 really bad. The borders on this deck was like horrifying. It was like a border within a border. But this has my favorite backing on a tarot card of all time. I love that blue. This is not a bad deck. And it has some really... I love the goddesses in it. You know, the goddess parts, which are the majors. But it's the minors in this deck that drive me ape shit. People really like the art of the minors in this deck. I like the art of the majors. The reason why I don't like the art in the minors is there was a few cards, not many of them, mind you. Maybe I could overlook it. But there was a few cards where it was very disproportionate. You could really look at it and just go, oh my god, that's too big of a head and too small of a body, too short of an arms, and it drives me nuts. I know that everybody, I'm not saying that the art is bad because I wouldn't be able to do the art either, but come on. If you're gonna put out a deck, at least make sure you got your proportions right, because some of her proportions are way off. There's one card that she had. I don't mind that card. I don't necessarily mind. There was one card in here that just drives me apeshit every single time I look at it, because her head is way, way too big for the body. What was it? There was a card in there, and I think it was in the 8th. Like this, the proportions are way off. I think that this one. This is the card that drives me freaking apeshit, because her head is way too big for those arms and body, and the arms and body is not that proportioned right. But yeah, other than that, I really actually should be reacquainted with this deck, because there's some redeeming things about this deck. This one, I just can't connect with. I got this one because I saw somebody do a walkthrough of it, and I thought, oh my god, I would love to have this deck. Because in a way, this is a very cool Harry Potter kind of deck. This is a very Harry Potter-y deck, Hogwarts-y kind of deck. I really love the Hanged Man in this deck. It's like Odin sitting there with his ravens. Oh my god, yes. Yes, hallelujah. But I really don't like the children in this deck. I'm not opposed to children in decks, but it's based around like a Hogwarts theme, and I'm like, nah, I'm not digging it. I'm not digging it. My next deck I've trimmed, but I haven't decided how I felt about this. I put it up on my Instagram for a trade and nobody bought. Yeah, you know, took a bite. So I might just hold on to this one, but this one's a cool one, actually. I got this one because it was cool. I just haven't used it. And I want to try reversals with this deck. That's why I got this deck, is so I could try to do reversals and try to like it. I haven't decided. But this is a really cool deck, though. I haven't decided how I feel about it yet. The next one I got in a trade. This one is the Handl Tarot. I forgot what it's called. It's the Handl Tarot or something like that. And it's US gaming system. It has some very masculine art. And unlike the Dorian Virtue deck, this is a very masculine angel deck. Very masculine art. I think the person I traded with this deck from was either a smoker, or she actually had this deck on her altar space a lot because it smelled of smoke. I didn't think it was of smoke of like smudge, but I thought it was smoke of as in cigarettes, but it was okay. I'm not picky about my tarot community. I'm not going to demonize somebody's bad habits, because I have bad habits of my own. Why demonize somebody else's bad habits when you have not a role model citizen either? So, but I actually do want to like this deck too. This is a strange deck for me. This is like one of those decks that I really wouldn't have bought unless I traded it, and I did trade for this. I haven't decided what I feel about this deck. It's very interesting. It's very masculine. It's a very masculine angel deck. I haven't decided what its energy is. And there's a lot of biblical stuff in this deck, actually, and the symbologies, and very Book of Revelations things. It's actually not a bad deck. I just need to work with it. It's actually kind of cool. It's kind of cool. Just haven't worked with it. Alright. This deck. Kelly did a walkthrough with it. I like the majors in this deck, but I cannot stand the floating pips. I can't do floating pips. I don't mind pip decks. I love pip decks, and I actually got this because I love the majors so much and I love the artwork, but I cannot not stand it for the life of me, floating pips. Cannot understand the pips floating in outer space. There's a difference between the Marseille pips and a floating swords and floating cups and things like that. I don't know what it is. I think I'm being too nitpicky, but I hate the floating pips. This deck, I hate it with a passion. I want it get rid of. It's still on my trade list. Nobody wants this deck. It's the worst deck of all time. It's basically the same keywords as the Angel deck, just it's fairies. And the one thing that I really think Dorian Virtue really needs to be careful of is she actually used some copyrighted images in this deck. You know, you were blaming Dame Darcy for copyrighted images. She actually used some copyrighted images in this deck. Guess who's that face right there in the King of Spring? That is Legolas from Lord of the Rings. Yes. Let that sink in. That is Legolas from Lord of the Rings. Orlando Bloom from Lord of the Rings right there. And then there was also another card. I think it was the King of... What was it? Yes! Another elf. Right there. You see him? Lord of the Rings, Hobbit movies. Oh my god. She's got to be careful of that, because that is major copyright. I don't mean major copyright. She completely, there was no question about it, copyrighted that. So Dorian Virtue, I know, has had a bad habit of using, hiring artists or using artists that copyrights images and maybe Gmail not Gmail, but Google Images or something like that. Oh my god, it's really very bad. I don't mean really bad. I mean, I could point out actors and characters from movies She's got to be careful with that. And that's one thing I really hate about that deck. And the last deck I have is the Native American Tarot. And it's also my husband's deck. He loves this deck, and he really loves the messages from it because they're very hard messages. They're very hard cards, and they're very hard messages. They're not for everybody. This is definitely not an everybody deck, for sure. You really have to be into the Native American imageries and things like that. However, he's reading the guidebook, and he's retelling me some very tarot things, and I'm like, wow, how Rider-Waite Smith is this deck, because he's really relaying to me a lot of Rider-Waite Smithness. And apparently the guidebook is very Rider-Waite, and well, the deck is not really. So I'm kind of impressed. My husband's actually learning tarot. That's cool. And I really like this deck. I just have not worked with it. He just snatched it up behind me. Well, I gotta go because Kelly from Truth and Stories got a Tarot Live chat, and I wanted to finish up at least part 2 of my tarot deck collection. These are just the tarot decks. In my next videos, I will do my oracle decks and my fortune telling decks. But as of right now, I'm going to call it a day, and you all have yourself a good day.